Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of 2 Chronicles, the 6th chapter, dealing here mainly with King Solomon's prayer, really for Israel, right? Having finished the completion of the temple, or finished the building of the temple in this prayer of dedication, right? As we can see here in the subheading, Solomon's dedication. So this is 2 Chronicles chapter 6, verse 1. Then said Solomon, "The Lord Yahweh hath said that he would dwell in the thick darkness. But I have built an house of habitation for thee, and a place for thy dwelling forever." And the king turned his face and blessed the whole congregation of Israel, and all the congregation of Israel stood. And remember that at this point, when we read in the previous chapter, when King Solomon came here, that pretty much the multitude of Israel came with him, right? So facing, you can visualize, right? Facing the temple or the altar, he turns to the congregation, blesses them, they stand, and then, he continues here. And he said, "Blessed be the Lord Yahweh God of Israel, who hath with his hands fulfilled that which he spake with his mouth to my father David, saying, Since the day that I brought forth my people out of the land of Egypt, I chose no city among all the tribes of Israel to build an house in, that my name might be there. Neither chose I any man to be a ruler over my people Israel." Right? So from Israel being delivered out of Egypt all the way into the promised land here, it's interesting, right, that the Lord said this here, that he didn't choose a ruler over his people Israel. And technically speaking, right, somebody might say, well, what happened to Saul? But Saul was really because the people wanted a king, right? When you read about it, that's why Samuel was upset, right? He was like, he was pretty much upset, saying the Most High is your king, but you guys want a king because you want to be like the other nations. And that's why when the Most High gave the kingdom to David from Saul, he said that, right? That roughly paraphrasing, he's going to give the kingdom to one that is better than him, and more specifically, a man after the Most High's heart. That was King David. Verse 6, it says, "But I have chosen Jerusalem, that my name might be there, and have chosen David to be over my people Israel." And that's why, the Jerusalem is the main city. I think in Galatians, right, or one of those chapters, the Apostle Paul mentions Jerusalem, which is the mother of us all. Verse 7, "Now it was in the heart of David my father to build an house for the name of the Lord Yahweh, power of Israel." And the heart meaning it was in his mind, it was his intention. "But the Lord Yahweh said unto David my father, Forasmuch as it was in thine heart to build an house for my name, thou didst well in that it was in thine heart." Meaning you had the right intentions, right, for even thinking about doing something like this. "Notwithstanding, thou shalt not build the house, but thy son, which shall come forth out of thy loins, he shall build the house for my name. The Lord Yahweh therefore hath promised or performed his word that he hath spoken. For I am risen in the room of David my father, and am set on the throne of Israel, as the Lord Yahweh promised, and have built the house for the name of the Lord, power of Israel." This is King Solomon speaking, of course, right? "And in it have I put the ark, wherein is the covenant of the Lord Yahweh, that he made with the children of Israel. And he stood before the altar of the Lord in the presence of all the congregation of Israel, and spread forth his hands. For Solomon had made a brazen scaffold like a platform, of 5 cubits long, and 5 cubits broad, and 3 cubits high, and had set it in the midst of the court. And upon it he stood, and kneeled down upon his knees before all the congregation of Israel, and spread forth his hands toward heaven. And that's even that in itself is humbling himself, right, as a king, to show that, to show that honor, right, and dedication and solemnity when it comes to praying to the Lord, right, before all the congregation. Even the king himself went on his knees to make this supplication unto the Lord. Verse 14, and said, O Yahweh God of Israel, there is no God like thee in the heaven, nor in the earth, which keepeth covenant, and sheweth mercy unto thy servants, that walk before thee with all their hearts. Thou which hast kept with thy servant David my father that which thou hast promised him, and spakest with thy mouth, and hast fulfilled it with thine hand, as it is this day. Now therefore, O Lord God of Israel, keep with thy servant David my father that which thou hast promised him. So basically, continue in, aka fulfill your promise to David, saying, there shall not fail thee a man in my sight to sit upon the throne of Israel, yet so that thy children take heed to their way to walk in my law, as thou hast walked before me. And this is why the southern kingdom, from the time of David right on down, was until obviously the role of kings was like sort of taken away through captivity. The southern kingdom had a dynasty, a natural dynasty, meaning the those that reigned, okay, it was a continuous succession of inheritance, right, from the father to the son to the son to the son. Though you had Athaliah, right, which tried to come up in there, but that was to naught, right, because the true king was still alive, and he, Joash, that is, was still in a appointed time put back on the throne. As to where, when you look at the northern kingdom, you had cases of, like, for example, Jehu being anointed of the Lord to wipe out the line of Ahab. Well, Ahab was a king. Jehu was not from his line, and having had his line wiped out, that's no longer a dynasty, right? Maybe a monarchy, but it's not a dynasty, because then the rulership was not passed down through the family line, so to speak. And so, just as the Lord told David here, that's what he did. And he said here, right, as long as they continue to walk in my law and in my way, I always make sure that you have somebody that from your lineage that's sitting on that throne. Verse 17, now then, O Lord Yahweh, God of Israel, let thy word be verified, which thou hast spoken unto thy servant David. But will God in very deed dwell with men on the earth? Behold, heaven and the heaven of heavens cannot contain thee. How much less this house which I have built? So he's basically saying, like realistically speaking, right? Is the Most High, like, we don't expect the Most High to physically actually come and sit in this temple here, right? Because even the heavens and all of that can't even contain, the essence of the Lord. And so, verse 19, have respect therefore to the servant of thy prayer, and to his supplication, O Lord, Yahweh my power, to hearken unto the cry and the prayer which thy servant prayeth before thee, that thine eyes may be open upon this house day and night. So that's pretty much we don't expect you to come and actually physically sit in this house, but we are praying here, as more specifically King Solomon is praying here, that the Lord keeps his eyes upon the house, that if anybody comes here or prays towards this house or inquires, that the Lord will be attentive, as though he's actually living in the house. Upon the place whereof thou hast said that thou wouldest put thy name there, to hearken unto the prayer which thy servant prayeth toward this place. Hearken therefore unto the supplications of thy servant and of thy people Israel, which they shall make toward this place. Hear thou from thy dwelling place, even from heaven, and when thou hearest, forgive. If a man sin against his neighbor, and an oath be laid upon him to make him swear, and the oath come before thine altar in this house, right? So this is in the law. If there's some trespass that goes on, and then they say, okay, you're gonna swear, right? You're gonna take an oath of whether you're innocent or not. And as King Solomon is saying here, if that comes before the altar, as in the Most High is the witness, right? So if you look here in the NLT, it says if someone wrongs another person and is required to take an oath of innocence in front of your altar at this temple, then hear thou from heaven and do, and judge thy servants by requiting the wicked and by recompensing his way upon his own head. Right, so the servants would be whoever this matter is in between, and whoever is guilty will be recompensed, right? Bring that judgment upon his own head, and by justifying the righteous, by giving him according to his righteousness. And if we can look into the Hebrew for this word here, requite. All right, and it says here, shawab, to return, turn back, right? To bring back. So the other word that was used there was recompense, right? And that's pretty much what is being said here, right? So return this back upon the wicked, let it backfire on them. Verse 24, and if thy people Israel be put to the worse before the enemy, so things ain't going too well, because they have sinned against thee, and shall return and confess thy name, and pray, and make supplication before thee in this house, then hear thou from the heavens, and forgive the sin of thy people Israel, and bring them again unto the land which thou gavest to them and to their fathers. When the heaven is shut up, and there is no rain, because they have sinned against thee, yet if they pray toward this place, and confess thy name, and turn from their sin, when thou dost afflict them, then hear thou from heaven. And you notice he mentioned here, right, not just turning and praying, but turning from the sin. That's something a lot of people tend to miss. They do something wrong, right, and then they turn and pray while still continuing to do that. It doesn't work that way. Verse 27, then hear thou from heaven, and forgive the sin of thy servants and of thy people Israel. And when thou hast taught them the good way wherein they should walk, and send rain upon thy land, which thou hast given unto thy people for an inheritance. Right, because the vegetation, right, or the ability to grow crops in that land, in that region, was, especially at this time, right, heavily dependent upon the rain, the former and the latter, which the Lord promised he would give us as long as we remained to do right before his eyes. And we were warned, right, leaving Egypt, that this land you're going to isn't like Egypt, where the land is just like, you have those large bodies of water, so you can easily build those irrigation systems, and you always have, year round, basically, right, the sustenance, right? You can always plant these crops and so on. This ain't like that. So over here, you better make sure you come correct, because if not, that's why famine was one of a common thing the Lord sent in the land. And that's why Elijah was able to pray for it not to rain, because the rain was coming from the Lord anyway. He just withheld it for a period of time. And you notice by doing that, immediately, right, like as we read in the book of Kings, a famine pursued after. Verse 28, if there be dearth in the land, if there be pestilence, if there be blasting or mildew or locusts or caterpillars, if their enemies besiege them in the cities of their land, whatsoever sore or whatsoever sickness there be, right? And dearth, let me get a synonym for that. Scarcity, right? Shortage, deficiency. So you can imagine, like, if there's a drought, right, or lack of rain, then that can lead to dearth, right, or scarcity of food, because the planting and harvesting, and as you can see, famine here, right? All of that is going to be thrown off course. So, as it says here, where are we? Right. So King Solomon is saying here, if it's dearth, if it's famines, if it's diseases or locusts tearing up the crops, or even if the enemy besieges the land, whatever the case is, whatever the calamity is, right? Then what prayer or what supplication soever shall be made of any man or of all thy people Israel, when every one shall know his own sore and his own grief, and shall spread forth his hands in this house, then hear thou from heaven thy dwelling place, and forgive, and render unto every man according unto all his ways, whose heart thou knowest. For thou only knowest the hearts of the children of men. Now, it's also interesting is how King Solomon, right, made this prayer, and he mentioned, right, you notice he keeps mentioning this house, whether they come to this house, whether they spread their hands, while being in this house, whether they look towards this house. Well, eventually, what did the Lord do? He got so fed up with Israel, he had the house destroyed. Now ain't no house there to even go and do all this at. So good luck. Now my name is I've turned away. Like if you think of this in a real sense, right? Say there's somebody that you know, and whenever let me put it this way, right? If you had only one hospital in your town, your small town or clinic, and anytime anybody got sick, they would be taken to that hospital, right? Anytime anybody needed some medical attention, you would direct them to go to that hospital. And it would be then like the hospital's obligation, you could say, to provide you with the things you needed. Well, so long as the hospital is there, you could have people fooling around, continuously going and getting injured just to pull up, and then the hospital's there, so everything is all good. But what happens if one day you pull up and the hospital has been destroyed? It's been broken down, and there's nothing there. Now it doesn't matter because as long as I can make it to the hospital, I can get what I need, a prescription, a healing, diagnosis. But now it's not there anymore. So now what? Right? And in a similar sense, right? The Lord because remember, when the Lord brought the Babylonians against Jerusalem, right, in the siege of Jerusalem, around like 587 or so, it was by his will that the temple was destroyed, because he was upset. Okay, it wasn't like, oh damn, they did, oh, would you look at that? No, he had it to where, because he could have had them just break through the walls and then take Israel captive and leave the temple, but no, he had them burn it. He had them break it all down. So just an interesting thought, right, came to mind here as King Solomon is making this supplication to the Lord on behalf of Israel. Let's see. Verse 30 again, then hear thou from heaven thy dwelling place, and forgive and render unto every man according unto all his ways, whose heart thou knowest. For thou only knowest the hearts of the children of men, that they may fear thee to walk in thy ways, so long as they live in the land which thou gavest unto our fathers. Right, so do all this, that as long as they're living in this land, they'll fear you and walk in your ways. Moreover, concerning the stranger which is not of thy people Israel, but is come from a far country for thy great name's sake, and thy mighty hand, and thy stretched out arm, if they come and pray in this house. Now, the stranger here is not referring to a heathen, okay? We can look into the word here, but when you look at the context of this verse and the subsequent verse, right, you have here Nakar or Nakaria, and as you can see, it says foreign, right? Foreign, alien, So what King Solomon is referring to here are Israelites that are not, say, homeborn or living in the land. Okay, but when they were to come to the land, being that they would be of the stock of Israel, they would still be eligible for a portion, right? But as King Solomon is saying here, if an Israelite that's not, say, born amongst your people, but they are an Israelite and they come to pray here, then, verse 33, then hear thou from the heavens, even from thy dwelling place, and do according to all that the stranger calleth to thee for, that all the people of the earth may know thy name, and fear thee, as doth thy people Israel, and may know that this house which I have built is called by thy name. Because why would King Solomon be praying for this for the heathen, right? Because imagine the heathens come. So in a literal sense, right, a heathen pulls up, and the heathen's gonna come into the temple and come and pray to the Lord. And you say it was like a similar case to like what Balak wanted. What's supposed to happen there? Well, King Solomon said that if anybody pulls up, I should honor it. So I'm sorry, Israel, but it doesn't work that way. Verse 34, if thy people go out to war against their enemies by the way that thou shalt send them, and they pray unto thee toward this city which thou hast chosen, and the house which I have built for thy name, then hear thou from the heavens their prayer and their supplication, and maintain their cause. Right? So deliver them. If they sin against thee, for there is no man which sinneth not, and thou be angry with them, and deliver them over before their enemies, and they carry them away captives unto a land far off or near. Yet if they bethink themselves in the land whither they are carried captive, and turn and pray unto thee in the land of their captivity, saying, we have sinned, we have done amiss, and have dealt wickedly. If they return to thee with all their heart and with all their soul in the land of their captivity, whither they have carried them captives, and pray toward their land, which thou gavest unto their fathers, and toward the city which thou hast chosen, and toward the house which I have built for thy name, then hear thou from the heavens, even from thy dwelling place, their prayer and their supplications, and maintain their cause, and forgive thy people which have sinned against thee. Now, my power, let, I beseech thee, thine eyes be open, and let thine ears be attent unto the prayer that is made in this place. Now therefore arise, O Yahweh power, into thy resting place, thou and the ark of thy strength, right? The covenant, because remember that was placed or to be placed in the temple that was just built. Let thy priests, O Lord, be clothed with salvation, and let thy saints rejoice in goodness. O Yahweh power, turn not away the face of thine anointed. Remember the mercies of David thy servant. And that brings us to the end of the book of 2 Chronicles, the 6th chapter. So as we saw in here, it's pretty much a prayer from King Solomon upon the completion of the building of the temple here, beseeching the Lord to always remember and have mercy upon Israel, regardless of the situation we may find ourselves in, because King Solomon had the foresight to see what direction, would likely come upon our people, and therefore, he put this prayer out there to the Lord, so Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.